Welcome back to the Joke Zero podcast, where we have talked about everything indie filmmaking, what it's like to make an indie film. And if you've been following along, this is actually our season finale, our 20th episode. All of the other 19 episodes have been with cast and crew members from the feature film that Joke Zero produced, Plan B, which is out everywhere right now. So go check out the movie. It stars Jamie Lee and John Heater, who both did episodes this season. And now today I am with our director, our writer, our producer, Brandon Tamburri. We actually recorded this podcast months ago when the movie was coming out, but now we are recapping. This is current day, right? It is present day. And we're just going to talk about what it's been like to have your movie come out and the press and the feedback and the reviews. So what's going on, Brandon? How are you?
I'm doing well. I appreciate you coming back on here with me. Like you said, we
Of
recorded all of
course.
the other 19 episodes like 2 or 3 months ago, and now we're doing this episode in real time. It's November 21st. This episode is going to be coming out in a couple days, and we wanted to do it as close to the release of the episode as possible, just so we can share the latest up-to-date news on the movie.
I love that. Also, I want to just tell you, just from doing this podcast, I've told so many stories that I heard on the podcast, like with our animal trainer, with our intimacy coordinator. Like I learned so much. So I'm grateful for this experience and I'm excited to be back and hear how things have gone since we launched.
Yeah, I appreciate that because I had so much fun with this podcast as well. It was great recording them. I got to live with them for months because I was actually editing all the episodes, which
Yeah.
hopefully I don't do that for season two whenever that comes back. Definitely took way more time than I thought that it would, but we got to have on some great guests, had some great conversations, and it's been a lot of fun.
Really fun. So tell me, Plan B got a lot of like releases in different theaters in different cities. And I know you got to go to them, some screenings. Tell me about like what that was like. I know you went to Salt Lake City.
So I personally didn't go to Salt Lake City,
Oh,
but the movie did screen in Salt Lake City. Before we even get into that, I'm just going to go over really quickly all of the platforms where you can watch it because now there's a bunch of new platforms that were not available during the rest of the recording of these episodes. So you can buy or rent the movie with no ads on Amazon Prime, Apple TV, Fandango at Home, which is also Vudu, Microsoft, and Google Play. So if you go on those apps, as of right now, you can rent the movie for I believe $5 or $6, or you could buy it for either 13, 14, 15, something like that. Or if you want to watch the movie for free, you can watch it with ads on Amazon Prime, Amazon Freevee, Tubi, Plex, Roku, or Zumo Play. So all of those apps, all of them are free. So no excuses now for not being able to watch it. You can go get any of those apps for free or even just go on those websites and watch the movie.
you've worked really hard on this, like behind the scenes. You did the work of making the movie and then you worked really hard on this. So I don't know, any indie filmmaker out there, just know like it takes a shit ton of work for you to go out, check on your reviews, check that it's screening, check that it's playing on these apps that you so call heard it's play. It's a lot. So good job, Brandon.
I appreciate that. And now we can get into some of the fun stuff like
Okay.
the theaters that played the movie. And I know you mentioned it was a lot of work. I personally got all of these theaters myself to play the movie, which
That's wild.
it was a lot of work. I was just calling up theaters. I was calling up film festivals that were happening within the couple weeks before the movie that had relationships with theaters
Hmm.
or even venues. Some of these places, it wasn't an actual theater, but it was some kind of big venue that played the movie. You mentioned Salt Lake City. So that was the first screening we had. That was a lot of fun. I didn't get to go, but it did get a lot of press, which is great. So Kate Flannery and I got to go on the local Fox news station, Fox Salt Lake City, and we promoted the movie. And the segment was great. They cut my segment out, which was I thought was funny. So only Kate ended up actually being on the news. It actually wasn't only Kate. It was a really cool segment where they highlighted 3 movies that were coming out.
Oh, that's right.
They had on Josh Radnor as well in the same
Okay.
segment, who was talking about a movie that he did. I forget what the third movie was, but it was Kate, Josh Radnor, and someone else. And the full segment that I was a part of was actually released online. So you can actually watch that online.
That's great.
So we did that. We had another screening in Victoria, Texas, which seemed great as well. I did go to some of these, which I'll get into
Hmm.
as well, but there was over 200 people there, which was great.
That's awesome.
I appreciate that. The other ones I'll go through a little quicker. Saugatuck, Michigan. Nothing crazy from that one, but just another place that played the movie. Columbia, Maryland, which I actually attended that one. It was like a 2.5 hour
Nice.
drive for me. And I told them, I was like, if you guys screen the movie, I will go and I'll do a Q&A after. So I did that.
That's cool.
We did one in Jersey City as well, which was a great one. It was in this smaller venue. And not only did I go, but Jamie Lee went as well, our lead actress. So Jamie and I went and we did a Q&A after, and there was a couple of people from the crew that were locals that actually went to that screening as well.
That's awesome.
We had a Hollywood screening, which this one would have been a lot of fun to go to. I was busy with this one with Jamie on the East Coast and Columbia, Maryland, and all these other ones I went to. But the one that was in Hollywood, pretty much all of our LA based cast went. Kate Flannery was there, Suba was there, Megan Beatty and Jordan Cho, who were our bandmates who were on the
Hmm.
podcast. We also had Drew Garrett, who plays Kyle, the mini golf date, for those of you who have seen the movie, and also Amanda Schoonover, who's the nurse at the end of the movie during the birth scene.
That's great. I wanted to ask you when you went to the one in Maryland, because that was probably on a big screen, right? Like, was it very rewarding for you as the filmmaker to finally see it on a screen? Like, you sit through edits and you watch it on computer screens for months and months, and then, it comes out and it's out online, so you can watch it on a computer, you can watch it on your TV. But what was it like in a theater, like with an audience?
It was great. I'll say the first time, which I don't think we ever talked about this on the podcast, but back in March, the movie had the world premiere at the Mammoth Film Festival in Mammoth, California.
Okay.
Jamie and I both went to that one, and that one was in a theater. We did a bunch of press and stuff. So that one was really cool. That was the first time I really saw it in a theater. But all of these were awesome as well because that one, the movie had no distribution. We didn't really know what was going to happen at that point. For these, I was able to tell people right after the movie's coming out in like a week or 2 weeks, whatever it was. So
That's cool. Did any jokes like hit that you were like, "Oh my God, I didn't think that would get such a response with an audience?"
I think I had seen the movie so many times that I was like
Nothing
prepared for,
surprised you.
yeah, there was really nothing that surprised me. We also did so many test screenings of the movie, which I also don't think I talked about in the podcast, but there were so many jokes that were really like the nightclub scene, for example. There were some test screenings where some people just really loved that and were laughing the whole time. Then there's some others with like older crowds where they're just like, yeah, this is this isn't really for me.
Yeah,
And a lot of the bad stuff got edited out, which is the purpose of those test screenings. So the last couple screenings we had, we did one in Palm Springs, California.
fancy.
It was part of the Palm Springs Comedy Festival, which seemed like a great event. There were some big name stand-up comedians there, and they had like maybe five or six, maybe it was more than five or six movies playing.
That's great.
That one seemed awesome. There was one in Maumee, Ohio. I'll say I never even heard of Maumee, Ohio before, but they played the movie at the Maumee Indoor Theater. And I did a virtual Q&A after where they had me up on the big screen. And that one got a really good reception. I had a lot of people reach out to me from Ohio saying like, yeah, I love the movie. And some people even reached out and said, I've listened to the podcast now.
Oh, that's nice. Shout out to Mommy, Ohio.
Exactly. And the last screening we did was in Pottstown, Pennsylvania, which I was able to attend as well. That one was really fun. So, yeah, overall, we had all of these screenings, a bunch of theaters played the movie, and it was a great experience. I would recommend it for any independent filmmakers out there because none of these places would have played the movie had I not reached out.
You were successful. That's a huge list of places. Like, I wouldn't know that, like, making it a film and you're like, well, of course it's going to be picked up by Netflix and then it'll play everywhere, right? And it'll be like Wicked. But I feel it's not the case. And there are so many independent filmmakers who don't even think, like, what if I just call around? Because there are people who love film and are excited about new movies and new directors and, original work. So I think it's really great that you were able to like make those connections, especially for your next film.
I couldn't agree more. All of these places that played the movie were great to me. They were great to the movie. They built awareness. And I do also think another good thing that came of this that we can pivot into now is the overall just reception of the movie. It's gotten very positive reviews, which is amazing. And I think some of it stemmed from these screenings. We were able to invite some critics to these screenings. We were able to have all of these packed houses for the movie. And a lot of these people went online and rated and reviewed the movie. So I think it just really, it really did well.
And that's like literally that's become the first thing people do when there's a new movie out. They go to Rotten Tomatoes, right? People want to know. They're like, I got to know before I even see this, before I watch this, or after they watch it. So you have what, 95% on Rotten Tomatoes?
Yeah, so on Rotten Tomatoes,
Allah, that's good.
yeah, the popcorn meter, which is all the audience feedback, 95%, which is really good. And on IMDb, which a lot of other people use as well, 6.7 stars is our user reviews, which again is really good. And I think for a comedy,
Yeah.
we also have over 650 ratings. So at this point, that's a decent amount of ratings, I think, for an independent movie. You might see like Wicked, like you said, probably has like a ton of ratings, but
Whatever, they paid for it. That marketing budget, they're paying for those ratings at this point. Doesn't matter.
they absolutely are. And then, like you said, Rotten Tomatoes. So we have four critics reviewed it on Rotten Tomatoes, and they're all fresh right now. So it seems like more critics continue to review the movie when it gets available on more platforms. Like
Yeah.
we had two critics pop up this week, even though the movie did come out a couple weeks ago. So I'm hoping that we can get to 10 critic reviews on Rotten Tomatoes because then it will actually pop up. Right now, it says not enough critic reviews to really give you that certified fresh.
If you're listening to this podcast, go review the movie, review the podcast, but review the movie too, because I think that's very important.
Yeah, if you've seen it, go on Rotten Tomatoes, go on IMDb, and just review it. And if you're a critic and you are interested in reviewing it, reach out to the podcast and we'll send you a press screener and you can actually review the movie for free. Or you could just watch it on Amazon for free. And then
just get. Oh, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna pivot into our next topic, but you can do that or whatever you were gonna say.
No, I was going to say you don't get any of this unless you like hustle these promotional sites and places and conversations that you can be a part of. And it sounds like you did a ton of like other podcasts and press with as many people from the movie as you could, aside from this podcast, right?
Yeah. So besides from this podcast, I actually counted. I went on 8 podcasts or interviews that are actually out that you can listen to now. They're all available on jokeszero.com/interviews. And if you were interested at all in this podcast or any of the stuff that I had to say, I'd recommend listening. A lot of them were really fun to do. And besides just hearing from me, some of our cast also did other interviews as well. So if you go on jokeszero.com/interviews, you can also hear interviews that John Heder did, that Kate Flannery did, and some other cast members did that are not with us.
I still tell people about our John Heder interview and how he told us the tea on like the casting of Blades of Glory. I was like, I feel like I'm getting like Hollywood history right now, just like tea from Hollywood history. It was so, I don't know, it was really cool. Like there were so many moments I think throughout this whole season that just stuck with us. Like, that stands out. I wanted to say, when we found out that Bill Berloni was the first animal, trainer for Annie, like the original Annie.
That was crazy.
Crazy. No, it's so impressive. You really put together such an amazing team behind the camera, in front of the camera. And I think it was really cool. You even got them back to do podcast episodes and talk about their craft. And I think that was like, I see a lot of TV shows that do this, like, oh, there's a podcast that coincides with the show because there's like episodes every week. But like, it was really cool to have it with a film that's just coming out that you spent years of your life on. So
yeah, I figured that this was the only time ever that I'm probably going to have access to get people like John Heder and Tom Berenger and Vernon Davis.
Don't sell yourself short. Plan C. We talked about it this whole season. We're going to do a plan C.
I hope we can do a plan C, or at least some other movie that we bring back some of the same cast and crew. You, Anna, you have a walk-on role in any movie that I do. Hopefully a bigger role next time.
Yeah, I don't know if we call it a walk-on or just a offer-only role. That's what I want.
Yeah, offer only. You're just attached to the next project.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, that one will be a lot of fun. But I know we just mentioned the interviews. There's also a bunch of other press that you could also see that's on Joke Zero's website. So jokezero.com/news. You can also just go to jokezero.com and scroll through. I personally built this website and have been adding a lot of stuff to it. So
I love it.
Yeah, but anyway, we were just doing a little bit of a recap on the podcast, but
yeah, I'm sorry. I got excited for it. So
I think that's a perfect little transition for us because this is episode 20 of the podcast and they are available everywhere, wherever you get your podcasts. I know we always say that, but Apple, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartMusic, they're all on YouTube as well. And there's probably 10 or so other podcast platforms that also play this as well. So wherever you listen to it, I would say just continue to spread the word, continue to share it. We've also posted a lot of clips on social media, whether they be TikTok. Joke Zero's TikTok page is over like 700 followers now, which I think is pretty solid.
And you just started it when you put this podcast out.
Yeah, there was no content until this came out.
That's great.
The clips that we posted about the podcast have gotten over 195,000 views across Instagram and TikTok.
They're fun. They're easy to listen to. They're also they're less than 30 minutes and it's fun to hear about their career and you think someone's so major, like he had Napoleon Dynamite, but he's also an artist and an actor and he likes doing indie films and he wanted to do a rom-com. Like it's cool to hear those stories, I think.
Yeah, it certainly is. We had some amazing conversations and I think one of my favorite things about the podcast is that it's evergreen. So people can find this podcast in a year, in 2 years, and they can just hear some really cool stories from some really cool people. And who knows, maybe they'll listen to it and then they'll watch Plan B after. Or maybe someone stumbles upon Plan B in a couple of years and then they're Googling it and they happen to see the podcast and they go back and binge the podcast. So it's not necessarily part of this time. Anyone can listen to it anytime. We have some cool stories as far back as like the 70s or whenever Bill Berloni was working on these Broadway shows, or Tom Berenger was in movies back in the 80s. So
Tom Berenger. Yes. We have so many good episodes. You know what other one I loved? Billy Goodrum. That was such a fun episode, just knowing that he worked on Dumb and Dumber because it's one of my favorite movies. We got like surprise stories that I had no idea we'd learn about.
we really can't stress enough like how many amazing guests we had on this podcast who shared amazing stories with other projects they've worked on. And that's another thing too. We wanted to bring up Plan B and promote it, but at the end of the day, it was a filmmaking podcast. It was about movies, it was about the industry, about the inner workings of Hollywood or New Jersey, which is where I live.
Yeah, but you're an inspiring story because I think everyone growing up thinks if I want to work in movies, I have to move to Hollywood, right? Like that's like the be all end all. And it's like absolutely not. You can live wherever you want in the country. So I think it's like a really cool story that you were like, no, we're gonna shoot it actually where I live. And I think that's great. And everyone was down and they were excited.
I appreciate that. It was a concern at first, thinking like, how are we going to get people to come to New Jersey? But no one had an issue with it. We didn't have anyone that we asked to do the movie that said, I don't want to come to New Jersey. Everyone was excited to come here. Very close to Philadelphia, close to New York, and it's a nice little county we have here.
It was fun. I was excited because I'm from Philly. So I was like, oh, I'll go sleep at my parents and I get to be in a movie. That's what a dream.
Yeah, wake up in the morning like, all right, see you, mom. Going to do a movie with John Heater.
It was fun. I was nervous when I met him and I talked about it probably on air, but I was like, oh my God, I grew up with Napoleon Dynamite. He's pretty major. And now we get to like improvise together. Like that's so fun.
I was nervous. I was very nervous when I met him as well. I'm not sure if I told this on the podcast, so I'll tell it again, but I wanted him to do the movie from the start and we made him an offer. And it was through our producer, DJ Dodd, who we also had on the podcast.
Yeah, that was a fun episode too.
Yeah, that was a great episode. So DJ called me and he's like, hey, so I talked to John's agent. He really likes the script. He's interested in doing it, but he wants to have a Zoom with you first before he agrees to do it. And I was so nervous about that Zoom. I was like, this is going to make or break the movie. If he says
Yeah.
yes and does the movie, this is going to be an amazing movie with John Heater. But if he says no,
You're going to be like, what did I do wrong in our meeting? What did I say?
that would have been the one that got away. I'm like, oh man, I blew the John Heater meeting, but it went really well. And that's a great pivot into just talking about what's next for Joke Zero, because I obviously talked about through this podcast how it took me years to make Plan B, and I was very fully 100% focused on that. I wasn't doing a ton at first, but now that this press tour for Plan B is coming to a close, which has taken up the majority of my time, now I'm working on other projects, which I'm also going to talk about.
Give it to us. What are you working on?
So one thing I'm super excited about is a documentary I'm producing. So I've quietly been working on this for the last year and a half or so. And when you're directing something, it really is like your baby and you're working on that full time. But if you're just producing something, you can very much be involved in a handful of projects at one given time. And this documentary is called Cancer Free. It follows professional comedian Terrence Hartnett as he battles an aggressive form of cancer. So Terrence Hartnett, he's a super funny comedian, and unfortunately, a couple of years ago, he was diagnosed with cancer. And he really was just so inspirational and positive throughout this whole journey. And we're in the very final stages of post-production on this, and it will hopefully be at a film festival at some point next year and then get picked up for distribution after that. But it's just a very inspirational, a bit sad, and also very funny, which that's obviously the main reason I'm involved. Like Terrence throughout this whole cancer journey was just so positive and also so funny. He's going through some really awful things in this documentary, and he's continuously performing stand up, even going through chemo. And it really is just a very powerful film that I'm very excited to be a part of.
I can't wait to see it. I feel like a documentary that just can take people out of the like dark moments of cancer and show you someone who's just got the right energy to power through is so entertaining and it's fun and it gives people hope and it gives people like light because everyone has a cancer story, whether you've had it or you know someone.
Exactly. And the one thing I didn't even mention about it is during this whole process, he is also attempting to film a national park documentary.
Oh my God.
Him and his best friend who directed the documentary are going out to national parks. And originally they actually were planning to make a national park documentary, and then they pivoted a little bit more towards the cancer story. But It's filmed in 9 national parks.
Wow.
When you mentioned take you out of the bad parts of cancer and see some good, you get to see some actual beautiful scenery, really like National Geographic type stuff.
I'm excited to see it. I think you posted like I saw some trailer, some clip about it.
Yeah, so it was actually featured on Deadline a few weeks ago, which was great. And then besides that, I've written a few scripts that I'm hopefully going to make at some point. But one thing that I'm really excited about that is something that just popped up a couple weeks ago and was a direct result of Plan B, which I think is a great story for all the filmmakers listening. So there was someone that saw Plan B, a producer, really liked the film and ended up hiring me to write a pilot episode of a TV show, which is super exciting. So
That's dope.
and the hope is that if it gets picked up, I could also direct the pilot episode and Joke Zero would produce it.
Congrats.
Thank you.
That's great because you didn't even expect that. And that comes directly from your work. Like we always said, like whatever you put out, you never know who's going to see it or where it's going to lead you.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else you want to bring up while we're on or?
I think we covered everything. I just, thanks again for this fun opportunity. You inspired me. I'm making my movie hopefully this spring. So as a budding indie filmmaker, you gave me like a lot of, I don't know, I felt like I learned a lot and I got some guidance and some, my confidence is higher because I'm like, wow, like people really respected you for your script and your, the story you were trying to tell. And once you got a couple of great people on board, more people come on board. So I don't know. It was really it gave me some direction in my life. So I'm grateful for it. And Plan B is awesome. I think it came out great. Everyone who's seen it really enjoyed it. It's a feel good, fun rom-com. So
Yeah, well, I really appreciate that. And it was a lot of fun, like I said, doing this podcast. You were a great host.
thanks.
And I guess we could just close it out by just reminding everyone just go watch Plan B on all of the platforms like Amazon. I won't list all of them again, but I would say Amazon is the top one and it's also on Tubi. So Amazon and Tubi for free, or go rent it on Amazon if you don't want ads. And listen, rate, and review the podcast.
Yeah.
And if you want to just stay up to date on what Joke Zero is doing, follow Joke Zero Comedy on all social media platforms.
You can follow me at Anna Roisman everywhere, ANNAROISMAN. And yeah, and stay tuned for more stuff.